Hey, it's Marthea Pitts, the MSW coach, and thank you for coming back for another episode of Macro Social Work Your Way. Be sure to connect with me on social media. I'm on Instagram at _MSW coach, Facebook at the MSW coach, and on LinkedIn as Marthea Pitts, the MSW coach. This is going to be a great episode. Hey, it's Marthea, the MSW coach. I hope your day is going well. I am back for another episode of my podcast, Macro Social Work Your Way. So, if this is your first time listening into one of my podcast episodes, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am glad that you decided to join our tribe of macro social workers. So, if you're new or if you are a returning listener, I want to formally invite you to my next live workshop. I'm having one again. It's been almost 2 months at this point, or at least a little over a month since my last one. And it's a live workshop on how to land a macro social work job. It will be on December 27th. It's a Tuesday from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so I encourage you to click the link down in the show notes and join us. It's an opportunity for you to experience what it's like to receive group career coaching, one on one coaching from me, as well as to learn or to be presented to the formal framework that I created that has helped over 100 social workers make the transition from micro to macro, specifically using their case management experience. And so I work primarily with social workers who have at least 2 years of post MSW degree experience. That means that once they completed their master's program, they have worked in the field at least 2 years. So, like a good range is anywhere between 2 and 5 years. And they're interested in making the transition, the pivot into macro social work roles. So, that is who I work with. I don't work with every social worker, so I want to be clear about that. So, yeah, click the link, purchase a ticket. It's a low cost way to see what it's like inside of my full accelerator program. And again, get a glimpse at what the framework is that I designed and used over 100 times with social workers who have successfully made that transition. So I welcome you to join me at the end of December. So let's get into it. The topic of this podcast episode is about my journey into macro social work. And I shared on my Instagram platform. If you're not following me there, please follow my work there. I'm on Instagram at the_MSW coach. I make updates all of the time there that is like a surefire way to like know what Marthea has going on, what she's working on, where she is in the world, where is her job have her today. So that's a great way to keep up with me. But I said on my Instagram page a few years ago that I would share like the full details of my career journey, and I've never really done that. I've done it like in bits and pieces here and there, and I've never really done it. And so I was talking with my coach yesterday, and I was like sharing parts of it with her. And she was like, Marthea, you really should share that with people so they understand like why you are so passionate about helping others attain um, economic prosperity. In the words of one of my micro to macro economic prosperity through career and education goal attainment. Like, why am I so passionate about that? Because I know, and it's not a think, I know that when people look at me, they think one thing. Like they think, oh, she was a traditional college student. She, went into school, graduated, and she's doing all of these wonderful things. And she has like a full network, and that's why she's so successful, right? But little do people realize, and I know everyone says this, but it's true. Like my story will surprise you. It will amaze you. Like, wow. I don't share it openly unless I feel like people are in a space to really be trusted with it or can pull the value out of it. So I feel like I'm at a place now where I can share it here on my podcast episode because there's been a few episodes at this point of me just talking to you all. And so I wanted to talk about it. So my journey, and I'm gonna have like two phases, and I may have to like break this up into episodes. My first episode will be about my journey into social work as a whole. And then the second episode will probably be about my journey into macro social work because those are two distinctly different phases of my life. So, my journey into social work, I was a non traditional college student. After high school, I did go straight to college, but life happened, right? And so um, I had scholarships to go to college. I did all of the things, but sometimes as young adults, we think we know everything. We think we know what is best for us. So I made some decisions that made me have to like pause my education career really before it even like got started good. So I attended college. I did like one or two semesters straight after high school, and then I had to stop because life happened. And I immediately, this is me coming out of high school, never having worked a job as a high schooler because my mom, my family as a whole are really strong believers in the power of education. So like when I went to high school, when middle high school, my mom was a strict belief, like she held fast to the fact like my one and only job is to be a student. Your job is not to work. Your job is to be in school and to do what you're supposed to do there. Like my mom is she's a one she was a wonderful mom. She is a wonderful mom. And I credit like where I am in life, even though my path was a little bit shaky at first after high school. I credit my um my achievements to the foundation that my mother laid in my life from birth on until I, left her home as a young adult. So, and maybe we'll talk about that at another point in time, like why I'm so passionate also about youth development. But it's because it's like the foundation that my mom laid and my extended family also. But anyway, so life happened. I did like one or two semesters. I flunked horribly those 2 semesters because I was not going to classes. I did not understand back then the power of a withdrawal rather than getting a F because you're not coming and you're not, submitting your assignments and all of the things, right? And if I really think about it, a lot of what led, I know why I was so hesitant to go to classes back then. And again, maybe that's another episode to another at another time. But the landscape of the world was very different. I'll just leave it at that. So I didn't always feel comfortable in those spaces. But anyway, so life happened. I um, dropped out of college, and so now all I have is a high school diploma and a few credit hours. So again, life is happening and you have to pay bills, you have to live, right? So I got my first job again because I worked in let me back up. I worked in high school, but I worked for like 1 week at Kentucky Fried Chicken. That's because I begged my mom for like a year to let me get a job because all of the people I knew had jobs. And I worked that job. I don't even think it was a full week. I worked like 2 shifts and then I begged my mom to quit. And I quickly realized, like, Marthea, be a child, right? So, fast forward, my like I worked little small jobs here and there. It was more like seasonal type stuff. Like my mom would expose me to working, but it wasn't a full blown. You have a job that you're going to every day, year after year. It was none of that. It was like short term projects that my mom would help me get. And it was those jobs that I had like seasonal where I began to understand the power of you can make money, right? If you are in the right situation. So like even though they were seasonal and they may have lasted for a few weeks, I was in high school earning like $25 an hour, right? Which is unheard of. But it was because my mom was helping me get and I can just talk about it. It was more like surveys, doing surveys over the phone, right? So again, these are transferable skills I was developing and I was earning money at the same time. So coming out of high school, going transitioning into adulthood, my ability to communicate with people was off the charts, right? And it came from, yes, those jobs, but it also came from the foundational activities that my mom had me in from a very early age. Again, I'll probably have to do like a podcast episode about all of that. So I started to amass these transferable skills that were really valuable. So once I realized, okay, school, and at this time when I stopped going to college, I was in my mind, I had positioned it as college is not for me, right? But, and one thing about me, and I can say this matter of factly, I have always been an outstanding student. I may have not been on the straight A honor roll list, but I was always good in school, especially when it came to certain subjects. And a lot of that, again, is credited to my mother because she was a very active parent. She worked inside of the school system. And so she spent a lot of time with me on that type of stuff. So, anyway, so I go from being a top scholar in school, from getting scholarships to go to college to now I'm dropping out of college saying and like touting the narrative that college is not for me. And the reason I had begun to like hold fast to that narrative about college is not for me is because I did not set up realistic goals for myself or easy like attainable goals for myself in the beginning. That's why I'm so big about strategic career planning and creating realistic attainable goals based on your situation, right? So a lot of the reason why I did not like pass my classes is because I was taking 8 o'clock classes, even though my mama told me, no, don't take 8 o'clock classes because, all of the things, right? So, anyway, fast forward, I'm not going to college anymore. I'm working. In the city where I live, state government jobs are goals. Like at this time in my life, state and it's still this way, like state government is the top employer in my city. So back then it was super hard to get a state job before they outsourced it outsourced the hiring of state employees in my city, because state jobs was very heavily based on who you knew. So nepotism was very real. So it was hard for someone who was an outsider to the city because I'm not born in this city. My family relocated here in high school. So my mom didn't really know a lot of people. I didn't know people. I only know the people I went to high school. They don't know people. So it was hard for me to get those jobs straight out of high school. So what I had to do was I worked as a receptionist at different places And then I like discovered call centers, right? So I what I did was I worked with a call center that was under contract with the state, and I got experience there. I wasn't there very long. This is where I began to get very creative in fast tracking my career. As you know, I only had a high school diploma at that time, but I had to get very creative, right? Because again, state government was goals. Right? That's where you want it to be, to have good benefits. If you wanted to have a good flexible schedule, if you wanted to get paid good, that is where you had to be. And I did not know anyone. So I got that job at the call center, flipped that experience. I became very good at learning like what they looked for in people that they hired into the state government jobs. Because at the call center job, like it was a brand new contract, so our call volume was very low, and they had a rule where like you could do anything on the internet as long as it's through the state website. So if you can get there through the state website, you can use the website to do whatever you wanted to do, right? So you couldn't like go out and check your email because, well, you could, right? I just remember something. You could, right? Because the rule was as long as you can get to it through the site, you can be on there on the clock. So I got very good at you, and this is during a time where the internet was still new, kind of. I'm not I'm not older, but I'm not a baby either, right? So this is where a time where like internet was becoming more had more prevalence. Like it wasn't in everybody's home yet, but it was becoming more prevalent in the workplace. So anyway, I so the rule was as long as you could get through this main internet site to wherever you could use it doing work. I became very good at doing searches on the internet through that website. Like I would find links, like gateways to different things. Like I could go and check my email because in there, like they had like a on like page 55. Once you click through so many pages, you could find a link to the Yahoo login site. All of the things. Also in that time, because my goal, I knew my goal going getting that job, and while in that job, again, this is why I always talk about setting career goals for yourself. My goal was to get a state job. I knew I wasn't going to be in that call center job long, right? So every day I would go to work and I would work on my state and my state application. And with state government, career tip, this is with any governmental entity, they want to know your entire work history, right? It's not like a resume where you just have 4 or 5 bullets. On a government application, they want to know every duty you ever had in life, every job you've ever had, every volunteer position, if it's applicable that you had, and what you did there, every single task. So when creating a state application, it's not something that you will sit down and do in 1 hour. Like it literally took me weeks to probably even a few 2 months to get it down, to get my task in there in a way that was concise and that really magnified me as a top candidate. So every day I would go to work because we had no calls, and they said as long as you can get, because on the state website was the portal to apply for those jobs, right? And so also another so I'm going to go there in just a moment. So every day I would come into work, I would work on my application. This is where I began to get very good at reading job descriptions and know and identifying my transferable skills. I didn't know they were called transferable skills back then. I just knew that every 5 job postings that I read, they wanted this, right? And I had done this. And so I had to get very creative in like making certain that everything that I had experience in that matched the job posting, that I included it on my application. So every day I would come in and do that. It was me and a friend of mine. My friend, she had a college degree, a bachelor's degree, but I didn't, right? And so every day I would come in and do that. Every month, I was applying to multiple jobs. Like I would apply to multiple jobs a day, right? That was like once I had my application fully set up, every day I would come in and apply for a job. That was just routine. Again, I'm through the website. I can do this. My supervisor knew as long as you're through the website. So I eventually landed a state job, right? I got my first state job. And when I get to the state, I I still hold me and my colleagues from my very first state job are still friends to this day, right? Because they had already been working in the state system for years, right? So they quickly brought, and this is why I'm so big about when you start a new job, and this is for people that's listening to me. When you already work at an organization and new people come into your organization that don't know the way, please, right? Be the person, and of course you need to gauge the situation to understand if this person is like trustworthy enough, but don't be like the hoarder of information. Share that with the people that are new on your team, especially if you know the ins and outs of like how to navigate the organization that you all work in, especially if it's complicated, right? And so this is where I got my first lesson in that. Like I am a big proponent. If somebody new comes to my team, I'm gonna talk to them and I'm gonna talk to them real about this is what you should look into. This is what you should know. This is what you should, just be on high alert about, right? So anyway, my colleagues at the time really took me under their wings, brought me up to speed about the benefits and like all of the things that you get as like the perks. So this is where I learned the importance of reading your employee handbook, right? This is all a part of this is where I started developing my strategic career like planning and moving. It was in this very first job. I was earning $19,100 a year, right? Nothing. Nothing. And this was not that long ago. It's probably like 15, 17 years ago, not even 17, 15 years ago, right? $19,100. This is where I learned like the importance of reading your employee handbook, learning about the benefits available to you. So I moved progressively as far as I could, which is having a high school diploma. I will move from one call center to another. It would be because that call center paid me like $5,000 more a year. I even made a move one time because the call center paid me $1,000 more a year, but it was because I wanted to move to that agency because it was easier to move around internally in that agency. I eventually came back to the agency that I first started out in the state government system because my old supervisor there, she was starting up a new unit and she wanted me to be in the unit, right? Because I'm one thing, even though Marthea is moving, I'm always a top performer, right? I want you to remember that. I'm always a top performer everywhere I go, right? And so I always train my colleagues to do that too. But anyway, so she basically scouted me back from the organization that I left to that I went to from her organization. And so when left the organization, before I left, she told me like, we're going to be starting a new unit. There's a new Florida law that's coming out where we have to have this mandated unit. I'm supporting you in leaving now. I understand why you're leaving now because I can't pay you more, but I'm going to want you to come back and I'm going to like pay you way more, right? So I left. She stayed in contact with me every month about what was going on, when the jobs were going to be made available, all of the things. So the time came and I moved. Now, also keep in mind that state government in my state promotes you moving from one agency to the next. That is what they promote that. They want you to move from one agency. Again, these are all things that I learned in my first job from my colleagues. Like they want you to move around. They want you to move around so much so that they give you free leave time to go to interviews and go take skills tests and do all of the things, right? So I moved back to that organization, but now in a new role, earning way more money than I was at the 19,100, but still it's not enough to really live on. It's still way under like 40,000, if that. I don't even think it was that much. Um, but the hope was that I was gonna come back to this organization in a more of a like team lead supervisory role, right? But by the time the law rolled out, macro work. The law was created. By the time it rolled out and was implemented, it stated that the people in like team lead, supervised team lead roles needed some college credit, preferably a college degree. And I had none of that. I had a few college credits, but I did not have enough to meet the requirement, right? So I was essentially just another staff person, but I still was earning more money. So it was in that position where one of my colleagues at the time, began taking classes at our local community college. And me and her have like shared backgrounds, right? I'll just leave it at that. We have a lot of shared backgrounds and similarities. So I used to just watch her like come in to work, and like she would come in straight from class because this call center that we worked in works operates 24/7. I would watch her come in every day from class and like talk about class and all of the things. And so one thing about Marthea, I am not afraid to ask questions. That's my career too. Like I'm realizing more and more that people are afraid to ask questions in the appearance of like you don't know something. It's okay that you don't know, right? And the fact that you're trying to know or to learn more is admirable. So ask questions, ask more questions. So anyway, I began to ask questions, and she told me like how she was going because I was like, "How are you able to pay for that? Like, how are you able to do it?" And so she shared with me again. It was in that handbook. I didn't get that far, where the state of Florida can give you a tuition waiver to go take college courses at specific like state system colleges and universities. And so she was going to our community college using the waiver. That was when my life changed. And I'm going to pause for a moment because I am still indebted to her to this day. We've worked together several times since then, and we are friends in real life. And so every time, like, we don't talk every day, but every time we reconnect, which probably is like once a year, I'm always thanking her because she changed my life, and it was in her willingness to just be transparent with me. So she told me about the waiver and like how she was making it work going to classes. And so like that next semester I enrolled at my community college because up until this point, this is few years, like this probably like 4 or 5 years, I kept saying college is not for me. But again, I'm the top performer everywhere I am. I've been passed over for supervisory team lead positions because I did not have a degree, and truth be told, I was always, how can I say this in a politically correct? I was always way more advanced than the people that led me, right? But they were my supervisors because they had degrees and I did not, right? I was always. And around this time, and I'll say this because someone may understand it. I in these positions, I always came against like my supervisors feeling threatened by my presence on their team because again, I was always a top performer. Right. But little did they know that Marthea never had aspirations of supervisor type positions. I just never did. Now that I know, now that my lens is a lot more developed, I understand why. It's because I'm not a supervisor, I'm a leader. And supervisors are leader and leaders are two very distinct roles, right? So anyway, I went back to I went to the local community college and I started taking one class at a time. One class a semester, and a semester was from August, like a fall full semester from August to December, and then the spring was from January to May. I took one class the first year each semester. I took one class in the fall, one class in the spring, one class in the summer, and they were all college prep classes. The very first class that I took was the college prep English course, and I was not required to take the course, but I wanted to take it because I had been out of school so long and I was not confident in my writing. So then from there, I took, to like a math class, um, a college prep math class, all of the things. I worked my way up. I just want to say that the community college where I live is top notch. It's a world renowned community college. People come here from around the world, come from around the world to attend the community college. So I was very successful. So much so that I made the president's list every semester. I was making A's and B's. I was excelling, right? So then my mindset shifted from, okay, college is for me, to you never finish anything, right? Because, and I didn't say this earlier, yes, I stopped going to college straight out of high school, but I had like attempted to go back to college several different times in like those spans of year, like those periods of time that I was out. I attempted to go back. And this is where I was going with the point about like realistically setting goals for yourself so you don't like set up an aversion when it doesn't happen. Because I was creating like goals for myself. I'm gonna go back to school and I'm gonna take 3 classes and they're gonna all be during the day. And it's like, how are you gonna take 3 classes, girl? How are you gonna do that? And you work full time and then you have all these other things that you need to do, right? So I would register for the classes and not be successful in it. And so that was just like compounding my belief of college is not for me, right? So when I went back, now I have the state paying, my employer paying for my classes, and I'm taking one class at it because by this time I had learned the lesson. Set a realistic goal for yourself. So I took one class a semester and I was acing it, right? And so then I eventually moved up to 2 classes a semester. I don't think I ever went above 3. I know I didn't because after 3 as a working adult, that's just not possible for me. So again, I'm still making the president's list. So at this point, my original mission for going back to school, why when this friend of mine told me about the tuition assistance, was because at that point in my career, I was tired of people telling me what to do. Again, I was always a top performer of my team, and my supervisors like knew this, right? And they internalized that in whatever their own way. That was not my problem because I was just there to do a job and do it with the highest level of quality. So my thinking shifted from college is for you, but you never finish nothing. So you ain't gonna finish it, right? Because when you look at the course sequences, like I'm taking one class a semester. You want me to take 60 credit hours? Like, wow, okay. So when I completed my AA degree and I graduated, that was my first like tangible thing of Marthea, you can complete something. You did it. You did it. I did it in my own way, but I did it, right? And that was another thing that I mastered during that time was I was trying to do things the way that other people did it when my situation is completely different in comparison to theirs. And when I was trying to do it their way, it didn't work for me. Right. And that is where I learned like it's okay to create your own path and do things your own way. Wow. Wow. Just thought about that. You see how life comes full circle? And the podcast episode is Macro Social Work Your Way. I didn't even connect the dots on that. Thank you for that revelation. But that's where I learned like it's okay to do things your own way and create your own path, right? And you don't have to do it the way everybody else is doing. So I graduated, I completed my AA degree, my Associate of Arts degree. And then from there, I couldn't no longer use my employer education benefits because I chose to go to a bachelor's degree program that was not in the state university system. But I strategically chose the university that I did because their program was designed for working adults, where you would take one class a semester, but by the end of the semester, you would have 4 classes done. So you would come in and complete your bachelor's degree in 2 years because you're still getting, like, the full-time status. So I had to pay for those classes out of pocket. Again, that's where I got creative about, like, finding 2nd and 3rd jobs to pay for it, right? Again, a whole nother episode. But I went on, I completed my bachelor's degree. And so at that point, and as a child, I always knew that I would always talk about getting a PhD. I just did. Why? Because my grandmother has a PhD in, or my grandmother actually has two PhDs. But one of them is in early childhood education. Again, my family I come from a long line of educators, and my family places high value on education, right? So I grew up as a child in with my grandmother who was working on her PhD, and witnessing her like writing her dissertation and defending her dissertation, all of the things, right? So I grew up knowing like I'm going to get my PhD. That was just always a goal on my list. Again, I think that's why I created the narrative of like college isn't for me, because when I couldn't successfully complete college, I knew that was like I'll never get to that goal of getting my PhD. Even though it would never sit right with my spirit that I didn't have a college degree. But anyway, so I go on, get my bachelor's degree. I get my bachelor's in business administration because there was only really like a few options of degree types at the college that I chose. And I needed to choose that college because, again, it was that program, because it was designed for working adults. So I got my degree in business administration. It was in that program that I decided, like, I really like marketing, right? I really do. I really was intrigued with marketing. And I was like, I want to use my marketing degree and I wanted to blend it with like my outside passions and all of the things, right? So I graduated with my bachelor's, and in my mind's eye, I got a bachelor's. This is at a time when a bachelor still had some weight to it. I'm like, I got a it probably was at the end of that. So I'm like, I got a bachelor's degree. I should be able to get I'm gonna get a job because I got a bachelor's degree, and I apply to these corporations and don't hear anything back. And so this is where I started to learn the hard lesson of a degree does not get you a job. What gets you a job is a good mix of diverse experiences. And if you have no outside the classroom experiences, be it on the job, be it paid, be it unpaid, be it volunteer, if you don't have any diverse experience to really add to your resume, you are not competitive, right? And so this is where I started to get the hard lesson. Of the importance of a professional development plan. This is why I go so hardcore about teaching you all how to create one for yourself, my career coaching clients. So I quickly realized, after looking at dozens of applications for jobs and the corporations I wanted to work with, and looking at the people that they were choosing to their to their graduate pathway programs, that I didn't have experience because I couldn't do internships because I was an adult working. I was a full-time working student. I couldn't do like go off to New York for the summer and work, and I couldn't do any of that. Right? So I had this bachelor's degree and I really couldn't do anything with it. And where was I working at the time? Oh, I wasn't working. I took a year and some change off from work to finish up my degree. And oh wow, I forgot about this. I took a year off. That last semester of my bachelor's degree program, I stopped working and I didn't work for a year and like a year almost. It was almost a year. And I lived off my savings, and that was my year of revelation. It was in that year after I attempted to like, because I knew then, like, okay, just this bachelor's is not going to do it. So I started looking into master degree programs. But if I knew what I knew back then, I would have been able to flip my bachelor's and use it without a master's. But anyway, I didn't have my career development hat on at the time, my workforce development hat on at the time. So anyway, I like started a one master's program, and then I quit. Like I got my revelation that social work was for me. So I told you all that to get to like to show the context, to show the journey, because people really think one thing when they see me when it's really a lot more that you don't know about. So I had a friend, it was that same friend that I started out in that first call center with that I said had a degree. She had a heavy background of working in like human services roles. She wasn't a social worker and she didn't have a social work degree. She had a psychology degree, but she would talk to me all the time about social work, and this was even while I was working on my bachelor's and even my AA. And she would talk to me all the time about, Marthea, you should really become a social worker. You should really become a social worker. And I was like, and at that time, because of my history was so rich in state government, s- specifically child welfare agencies, I didn't do investigations because I didn't have a degree, but I still worked under that umbrella and support roles. I was like, I thought of social workers as only being child welfare people, right? And I was like, I do not want to be a social worker. I want to take people kids. That's not what I want to do, right? And she would always talk about it. She was like, Marthea, you'd be so good because of the things that you've gone through in your life, you can really help others, right? And I was like, how am I going to make that work? And I have a business degree. So it was someone that and I don't even know who that lady was. It was somebody that I came across, and she told me like that she was in the social work program at the university that I ended up going to, Florida A&M University. And I was like, really? I said, my friend keeps telling me I should be a social worker and I should go get my master's, because my friend like had told me about the program years ago, like, and how it worked and the difference between FAMU's program and the other university that's in our city that focuses on like clinical work and all of the things, right? The clinical track. And so I met this lady and I was like, but I can't do that. I have a business degree. She was like, I have a business degree too. She was like, "It's a lot of people in my program that are getting master of social work degrees that have business degrees." She was like, "That's a natural progression for you to have a business degree and to get your social work degree because then you can own like have your own organization." And she was the one that like really like, okay. All the talk that my friend had did in the years before, which again was career coaching, right? She wasn't a career coach, but she was coaching me. She was helping me develop my mindset and to help me like connect my transferable skills. So I met that lady. I enrolled into the Master of Social Work degree program at FAMU. And I want to say that when I set out to enroll in the program, it was more so for a means to an end, right? I went back to school because remember, I didn't like people telling me what to do. And as I began to get my degrees, it became I'm on a mission to be able to earn more money in my life, right? I didn't initially like getting my bachelor's degree. I didn't initially say like, I want to get a social work degree to change the world. No, I got my bachelor's degree because I was trying to change my own life. And so once I got to the point of the revelation of, okay, you should be a social worker, that's when it like became clear to me that Marthea, you should go get your social work degree because you worked in these systems. And all of these years, I witnessed the huge inequities in service delivery. right? So I became very intrigued with service delivery, still am to this day. That really connects largely to my macro work. Service delivery on the front lines, right? And how everyone is not treated the same. So I enroll in the program. I get my social work degree, my MSW degree, and I am working. I was working already in my first case management job as a student, but then I stayed there for like a year after I graduated with my MSW degree. So that is my journey into social work. I'm gonna do another I'm gonna do another episode about my journey into macro social work that started in that like first case management job. But I just want to say that it's so easy to judge people by their outward appearance, but you never know what someone has gone through, right? I'm sure many of you like are in shock and awe that I wasn't a traditional student, that I got an AA degree and a bachelor's degree, and then I flunked out the first few semesters and all of the things, right? Um, but yeah, I just wanted to share that. And I wanted to say that if your path is not as traditional as the people around you, because during those times, I want to make it clear to people that I was having career crisis all the time because the people around me was making money, right? They were making money because they had state jobs straight out the gate, or they were coming into the newly created unit that I was supposed to be the team lead in, but I couldn't because I didn't have a degree. And I was training those new people, and then those new people went on to higher ranking executive positions. One of the people I trained in that position, she now is over the whole entire unit, right? She's a chief. So I was training people that came in after me that I came in and fast tracked their career, and I was still stuck in that entry level position because I didn't have the degree needed to progress. So I'm talking about it in like a nonchalant way, but it was a lot of turmoil during that time. It was a lot of like crying, struggling, painful moments. It was not glitter and gold by no means, right? And maybe because I'm desensitized from it, but it was a lot of questioning as to why, like why me? Right? I understand now why I had to go through those things. So I then can teach others how to navigate those rocky terrains, those situations where you don't have a support system, you don't have nobody who can pull your application and make something work for you. You don't have a network. That's why I go so hard about like networking is not a viable solution for everybody because everybody doesn't have access. Because I am one of those people, still am. Everything that I've gotten in my career is off my own like hustle, my own movement. Nobody has helped me, right? So if you are one of those people, because I had someone one time leave that in the comments about like she was proud of her wins because no one ever gave her anything. And I didn't have the capacity then to respond to it. But I felt like she felt like things had been given to me. And maybe that's just a wrong assumption, but nothing has ever been given to me. Nothing. Everything that I know, I had to learn out of multiple trials and errors while earning pennies, right? So that's my journey into social work. And I just want to say, like, if your journey is a little untraditional, it's okay. It's okay. There's still a place for you, right? So you may see others around you winning, but your time will come. It's gonna come. I know you can't see the other side now, but trust me when I say it's gonna come. Your hard work will pay off. So I want to leave it there because I don't want to get deep. I've had a very relaxing day and I want to leave it there. But If you are interested in attending my next live workshop, click the link, purchase a ticket, attend. And then next week, I'm going to share with you all, or I might come on later this week and share my journey into macro social work. So, this is Marthea Pitts, the MSW coach. Have a wonderful day. Bye.